Hey, what's up, creators? This is John, and you have once again located the Sketch Magazine podcast. I am joined, as always, with Sketch Magazine publisher Bob Hickey, typing away, Sketch Magazine editor Bill Nichols, quietly on the other side. And tonight we are going to do a rare thing. We are going to talk about a visual medium. We are going to talk about inking. And then a little bit later, we're going to talk about the evolution of a comic strip. But first, how you doing tonight, guys?
Great, John. This is Bill.
Doing pretty good, John. This is Bob. And I was not typing. It was the great editor, Bill. Must be double.
Uh-oh, multitasking.
Yep.
Shameless.
Yes.
He's editing while he's supposed to be talking. Well, so inking. Obviously, not the most audio thing you can talk about in the world, but it seems that with two world-class inkers here, uh, in you both, we would be remiss to not talk about inking a little bit. First off, let's talk about tools. Um, let's talk about do's and don'ts with tools. Now, there are people who are very much in the tech pin camp. The microns, the things of that nature, and then there are people who are very much it has to be a brush all the way 24/7, and then there are people who sit a little bit in both. So, kind of discuss where you are in that particular camp.
Paul, what camp are you in?
Well,
Bob camps out.
I camp out. Um, I have to say, until recently, I was probably more of a traditionalist, brush and pen. Um, but because of not having a true studio set up at the moment, I'm sort of mobile, inking, drawing, whatever, wherever I'm at. I've gotten real used to the microns and the Copics. Um, yeah, I'm surprised, but of course it's just what I'm working on too. I'm working on a comic strip, which I wanted that thin line. I'm not into the thin thicks as much for it. When I am, it's a bigger piece of artwork, so I'm able to pull it off with the Copic brush marker. So um, that's where I'm fitting right now. It's probably more what the tools of the new and upcoming inkers are using. But I have no problems going back to my, Hunts 103 quill pen and my Red Sable #1 brush. I have them right
What do you
here.
think that What do you think the difference in line is that you're getting with those types versus what you used to get with your brush and your 103?
I would say trying to ink with a micron is a little bit more work because you're trying to duplicate the thin thick instead of getting a thin thick with one pull. But
Mm-hmm.
also you don't have a wet ink page. You don't smear a marker. You smear ink. So to me, it's faster to ink with the microns and the markers. As far as a line, I don't see a whole lot of difference once I scan it in and get it in there digitally. I don't see it. So I guess I have a feeling when I move back into traditional comics, away from the comic strip, I probably won't be away from it, but when I start inking again in traditional comics, I will probably move back into a quill. Um, but it really depends on the artist too, and the look and feel. It depends on what I'm trying to pull off and what I'm asked to do. I've always not had a true inking style. Um, More of, okay, this artist does this, I'm gonna compliment it. So, what about you, Bill?
I use everything. I mean, if I have a choice, usually it's the Crow Quill anymore, but I still like the brush sometimes. I mean, you can get some things with a brush that it's hard to, some strokes and things. You can kind of get close on some things, but for me, the Quill, the 102, that allows me control, and when you use it a lot, you can you can get that almost brush look on your line. There's some, like I said, there are certain effects that you may use brush for
Hair.
hair, exactly. Um, but if it gives me the line, I will use whatever it takes, whatever I have on hand, and what feels right at the moment. Sometimes it doesn't always, but I'll mix it up. Sometimes just to see what I can do. So I mean, I've always been that way. So
You big mixer upper. How about you, John? What do you use?
Well, and you should probably know this from when you were running the store. I am an absolutely pin fanatic,
Mm-hmm.
and I have every type of pin. I have microns, I have Copics, I have things that I've gotten from stores that sell things for scrapbooking.
I used some of them down in Atlanta. I was playing with some of your markers down there.
Yeah, exactly. Anything I can find. Everywhere I go that has a pin, I generally will buy one and try it out. Just to see what sort of line I can get, if it's any good, what the bleed is on it, what how versatile it can be if I put pressure on it or stuff like that. So it's right now, and actually the best thing that I've ever found was at a scrapbooking show. It's this thing. It folds up semi flat, but when it opens up, it's a triangle
Mhm.
with little loops in it for where you can put pins,
Mhm.
and it's about, I'd say, about a foot tall. So you can get about 20 to 25 pins in each side of the three-sided thing.
Right.
And it's just the coolest thing, because it gives me, and I've got it organized here where, I have this kind of pin here, or the pins that I know can do this on one side, and the pins I know can do another thing on the other side. So if I don't know the name of it, I don't even know if it has a name. But if you ever get a chance to come across this, if you're someone who's a big pen fanatic like I am, um, I've only seen one other person with it ever, and that was at a crafting show.
Huh.
So it's a cool little thing, and it allows you to have a lot of pins. But I'm kind of like Bill, where I'll use whatever I can get my hands on. I kind of have like the old George Carlin's "Get a Place for Your Stuff," where uh every time he moved somewhere, the amount of stuff he took got less and less. I'm kind of like that with pins. I have a at-home set, which is like hundreds, and then I have a lesser set that I take to cons. Then I have a lesser set that I might take over to someone's house. So, and usually end up with like two or three in my pocket. So I've generally got a pin with me no matter where I go, just because I'm a huge pin fanatic.
Right.
And you brought up something that I want to ask Bill about. Bill, what sort of style do you think you have, or do you adhere to the idea of a style, of a quote unquote inking style?
for me, no, I don't guess I really have one. I tend to follow more tight pencils, and um, part of it is that for me is to bring out the pencil art, to polish it up or to bring it out so that it can be rendered in black, and not so much to interpret it so much. I mean that's always been my way. If I five different pencilers, my stuff will usually look, I guess it's more called old school. Uh, it will more resemble, I guess, those five pencilers more. I don't go out on a limb. Uh, that's me. But I have plenty of very talented friends and colleagues and brother inkers on the Inkwell Yahoo group.
Mhm.
Tim Townsend and Mark McKenna, Bob Allman, uh, uh, Sean Parsons, Aaron. I mean, there are I don't know how many hundreds of people there are on there, and some are just pencilers and artists too. But Allman has created the Inkwell Awards, which celebrates the craft of the inker, and I think it's in its third year now. And there are all kinds of styles and all kinds of talent levels really across just our industry. So I would say I'm maybe in the middle of the pack as far as ranging back and forth to being a quote unquote tracer. Thank you, Kevin Smith. Or to me, inking is a combination of two. It's a collaboration really between a penciler and an inker. A collaboration of two styles. And even if your style is not all that out there, there is still something of your quote unquote style that is in there. I just don't think that I personally have a style. That's to me for me not either good or bad. I'm getting something inked is the goal. It's not
Right.
to.
Well, there's styles out there. I mean, you look at say Bat from Top Cow. Anytime he inks everybody, you can just see his thin, thick, and his flowing lines and everything.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if it's Dave Finch to Mark Silvestri, whoever. You know a piece been inked by Bat, as long as it's not killed by color. It's just very clean, very flowing. So yeah, there's definitely you can add style to stuff, as evidently Bat does, and a few other art inkers out there do. Or you can enhance what the pencilers do. And I think it's sort of where you and I fall in, Bill, is that we enhance what the pencilers do. If we modify something, it's slight. If we add a thin thick, it's because we feel like the light source is somewhere else. We might feel something in black just to separate things, add a little bit of a thinner or thicker outline. There's a little bit more separation, but we're not reworking a whole piece. To me, it's just sorry, it's not my job. My job is to embellish what's there and move on. If I want to redraw it, and I'll draw the piece.
Right. Right, and that's to me that can be adding. I won't say work, but make it more of a chore instead of the challenge of bringing something out. Whether it's backgrounds where the people are stick figures. Personally, I hate that because then I have to put that in there because I'm looking at there's another panel, there's another page further on, and that just sort of slows me down, kind of thing.
Right.
Or if they're just really vague, but then you sort of have to look at what the goal is, as far as that page or that panel.
Right.
Is that part of it? And if it is, then that's something else entirely. But I mean, if you want to look at difference of styles, I mean, I remember Kyle Baker when he would ink for Marvel, and there was a couple of, I think it was an Avengers annual and a Fantastic Four annual that it was John Burns pencils and Sal Buscema inked one, I think, or maybe no, it was Joe Sennett, sorry, and Kyle Baker inked the Fantastic Four, I believe, and there were some pages that were duplicated, and it was just seeing the difference in takes on John Burns pencils, and I always loved that because even if you look at the different inkers on him over the years, you can see from Terry Austin to Jerry Ordway when he inked him, and
where is Terry Austin? I
around.
loved his stuff over Art Adams and stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He had that little line that he would break up as he inked. Oh, man.
Yeah, and looking at those, I mean, I know people who have they sort of dissected inking styles or inking, especially the image inking style. with the little serrated lines and
Cross hatching and all that.
yeah, and for me, one thing is it's one thing to know how to do it, but it's yet another thing to know why to do it, and that's one of the things about Sketch Magazine. That's one of the things about if I review somebody's portfolio or look at somebody's inking, they want to comments on inking or whatever. Knowing why you do something, that gets inside you. That's part of your mindset as far as what you're bringing to the table the next time that the pen touches the paper. And that's writing. That's every other thing that you do. But knowing why, let's say a word balloon, for example, with a letter, why a word balloon is placed here instead of, on the other side of the panel, kind of thing.
Mhm.
That is part of it too, and that enhances what you do when you bring sort of that polish to the page. So
There may be no answer for this, but do either of you have a trick or your fallback move? You know what I mean? Like if if there's no indication of what you or what the page needs necessarily, is there a fallback move like the old Wally Woods thing? When in doubt, black it out. Do you have your thing? That's your fallback move. Like, do you fall back on cross hatching, or do you fall back on pointillism, or do you?
Ooh,
What's your thing?
I don't like pointillism.
Neither do my
he
students.
doesn't. He hates it.
No, neither do my students. But
Now, probably simplicity, and then keep coming back to it and checking it out. To me, I'd rather go with less and build it up and get away from it, and then look at it again, than say I have a fallback. Even though black it out and in doubt's pretty good. I've done that a few times because I just had no clue. I've even had, when I was inking the Blood and Roses story that Federico penciled, there were some times I inked something and had no clue how it was going to turn out because I couldn't see it. Like an ant, because he used so many lines between the actual figures and the background that I remember a hand on one of the characters I inked, and I'm going, I know that's an arm and a hand somewhere, and I kept inking hopefully to find it. And I did finally, and then I went in and thin thicked the arm up to separate it from the background, but by pencil line I just couldn't find it. And then Chris Dreyer inked a second issue of Federico, and he cussed me the whole time. Because Chris will clean you up. He's got a very clean inking style, and he's been doing it for 20-something years, and he's a great inker, and I hope to work with him again soon. And he worked his butt off on Federico stuff, and he had inked Federico earlier on his own graphic novel. So Unit Prime.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, it's. But to go back to it, I personally don't have a fallback move. I just try to enhance what the creators, what the pictures put there. Bill?
Yeah, I don't have a fallback move. I mean, I throw my hands up in despair, maybe.
Okay, well, what do you hate to do then? I mean, we decided that Bob hated dots, so. So what do you really look at and go, oh my God, why do I have to do this?
Sometimes when things are just so vague, not so much that it becomes it gets on me to have to redraw stuff. I mean, I've said before, I'm not a penciler. I can do it. I don't like to. And having to redraw something sometimes, that kind of gets on me. But sometimes it's part of it. It sort of depends, because sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it can be fun. It's just not if you're looking at a whole book of that, or whole story of that for me that takes away from quote unquote the fun. I don't think that answers your question really, but
No, that was close. Well, without naming names.
Oh, come on.
Okay. Hey, if you want to name names, go ahead. Why not burn bridges? But is there someone who you had to ink that was just arduous from the minute you put the pen to paper till the very end? Was there someone you really hated inking, or conversely, someone that you just loved inking so much that you can't wait to get the next piece of art from them to do it again?
You want to start, Bill?
yeah, I didn't so much hate it, but what I was talking about before with the having to fill in details and stuff, it was Philippe Xavier, I think, on Legend Lore, where some of the background things were so vague, and I was also working on Parts Unknown with Bo at the time, one of those books. I think it was Chris Reddy.
Chris Reddy.
That I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So I was doing 2 books, and to me that was that's one of the times where those background things or the his style sort of slowed me down, I guess, because when he inks himself, and that's what he ended up doing. Like a few issues later, was he inked himself, and that's really. It seemed like he put more into it when he inked himself, and some artists do that. Mark Hester, our friend Mark Hester, or my friend. I know.
I like Mark.
But I know you do. It's kidding. When Mark pencils and inks himself, he adds more to it in the inking phase.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes than he does in the penciling phase. It really depends on the project, though. But I mean, I know other artists that are like that. But somebody I really enjoy inking is Gary Barker. If you look at my gallery on DeviantArt or anything else, I love inking Gary stuff.
Yeah, Gary's got a big bold line, an old style of penciling that's just beautiful, though.
Yeah,
and he puts it all in there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the end result sometimes. Well, I have an Ursula pinup that he did with a bunch of zombies and stuff, and this thing's gonna look. I've run it in blue pencil on my gallery and stuff. It's gonna look awesome. And there are a few others. There are a few other pencilers, that I like that old style. I don't like to follow the trend, the new trends, and maybe that's part of it. I don't like to jump on those bandwagons, and even if it's the new books that are coming out, the death of Superman kind of thing. I didn't care. By the time it came out, I didn't care, because to me that's, I don't know. Everybody, it seems like everybody was on that bandwagon, and I wanted to read the book, but not,
not necessarily work on it.
Well, I wanted to enjoy it. I didn't want to have to fight a bunch. Like when Star Wars came out, I saw Empire first.
Don't talk to me.
Well, there's just so much. I guess around me there was sort of that hype, and so it wasn't all that big a deal. I saw Empire first, and then I saw Star Wars at my first science fiction convention. And was sorry that I hadn't seen the other first, but I loved Empire, and I still do. Empire's my favorite movie of the bunch, and it always will be. It's awesome.
What was her name?
What was what name?
Didn't you take a girl or something? Come on, why is it your favorite?
Because it was the first one I saw.
It's the middle movie, though. It's the least favorite.
No, it's not.
Oh, gosh. All right, John. Who do I like to ink?
Yes, who do you like?
Jackie.
Or who do you hate if you want to name names?
All right, Jackie's a blast ink, but it's simple. It's a style. It's quick, but of course I ink a couple strips a week, and I love it. I really enjoyed Mitch, but boy, did he leave. He allows you to really contribute to the art. And sometimes you have to be very careful not to lose his fill, because transferring it from pencils to ink can be real tricky with Mitch. Greg Land, his early work was sweet. All the detail was there. Who did I hate? Frederico, I love you to death, and if you listen to us, it's great, but man, your pencils are really hard to ink and pull it out. So I guess to this date, probably, even though I'd probably work with Frederico again, he contacts me every so often. You probably hear something from him too, don't you, Bill?
Yep.
And but yeah, I don't think I would ink him at this point.
Yeah, I've seen some. And he's I guess he's one of the others that I've seen. I guess I'm pretty sure on. I don't know if it's on DeviantArt or what, but I've seen him ink himself. I think somewhere, and he's able to add more into it, maybe
Yeah.
more separation, more detail.
More separation as far as line widths and thinness and thicknesses around the
Right.
characters, because he sees it, but he doesn't pencil that way. He pencils a real thin
Right.
line. Yeah, I've seen it too.
Okay.
So that's mine. Not name a name. Frederico's a heck of a penciler. He just needs, if he's going to be inked by somebody, I think he needs to put a little bit more work in the definition.
Yeah,
Willie Peppers are. I love Willie's old school, but I still like.
I like
Willie.
to see Willie loosen up a little bit, because sometimes he'll come in stiff on stuff, and I only say that because I've been scanning a lot of his work with StormQuest recently, which I know this stuff is 10, 15 years old, but I've seen some of his recent stuff too. I like for him to kick back to that John Byrne type era, when that FF look that he was doing for a while,
Yeah.
when things a little bit loosened up, a little bit more rounded, a little bit, I don't know. There's some stuff that he was doing that was just killer, and I'm hoping we can get him back to that era to crank out with us.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Willie's
I
fun.
have sample pages. Yeah, he is. The sample pages that I have are from that era. It looks, very much like West Coast Adventure-y
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and and Willie's my pap. Hey, pap. But that's what I call him.
Pap.
Well, I mean, he's only like a couple years older than me, but it's always been that with me and Jerry Foley.
Yeah.
So we call him Pap, and he calls us son. It's something that we do.
All right.
But,
It's a
that's
thing.
from his. Yeah, that's from his days when he was penciling Southern Nights and
Right.
some of the other stuff. So, and maybe that's part of the fondness too, is that I've seen him over the years. There were some pages where it's almost like he channeled some Jim Lee,
Mm-hmm.
and I love those pages. And I really bragged on him at the time. So,
But see, I like that look, but I like for him to go with more solids and less line, the hatching and stuff.
yeah, it was more. I'm talking about it was more the composition,
Right.
really,
Right.
that he had gone beyond a little bit. That's one of the things about having worked with people or known people for so long, is that you can see how well, from 20 years ago to now, how they have changed, or even now people I've known for a few years, to see them even break into the business at this point, or get a new book, or collaborate on something else. That's cool.
Mhm.
And well, I mean, really, it's more than cool. I'm not physically part of it. It has nothing to do with me. I just, I enjoy their success, and I think we need more of that.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
encouragement.
Yes. And we got Willie working on some character designs for us, don't we?
Yep, StormQuest.
Yes. Cool. Looking forward to seeing it. But
Well, I have to agree. I really love inking Jackie. I would really wish he would burn her red pencil.
yeah,
Uh,
I asked her. She does not use it with me anymore. She's back to a
Nice.
crap fight.
And I could name a name, but I honestly don't remember the guy's name. One of my jobs that never saw the light of day that I inked, the whole book was barely the pencils were barely more than advanced stick figures.
Oh.
And the backgrounds and everything were barely more than advanced stick figures. And I was very tentative about fleshing them out at first, but then he kept trying to get me to flesh things out more and more and more and more, to the point where I felt like I was almost drawing the entire book myself.
Right.
It's, why didn't you just let me pencil this in the first place if we were going to do all this? Because it really felt like I was having to do the lion's share of the work to get it to look right, and then I never saw the book or money or anything else from that. So yeah, that was kind of a drag. But yeah, that you actually opened up two things, Bill, in your answer there. One, over time, you guys have been doing this for quite a while now. How do you feel you've changed, if at all? How do you feel your inking has progressed or not progressed, or is it where it always needed to be, or how would you view yourself from the outside somewhat as an inker right now? Or
Me
even from
personally,
the inside. Yeah,
well, me personally, I'm fine with never working for Marvel or DC. That's probably the biggest, the ambition of that once upon a time, maybe. But I mean, I had so many other things going on, or irons in the fire kind of thing, that my attention has many places it can go. So those days of pulling overnighters, no, I only have so many hours free in a week, and at this point I can choose how I spend them. And sitting over a drawing table doesn't have the same appeal that it used to, 20 years ago. So, and I certainly applaud my friends who do that and continue to do that. But for me personally, nah. I mean, I like inking when I get back in that groove, especially around when we do sketch card, the sketch card event. Getting to ink other people, different styles, different levels, especially pros. My friends who have, who are pros. Yeah, that to me that is fun, because that is I don't know, not because it's I really don't know how to describe that. I mean, I love every year. I want it to be an annual tradition that I get to ink Joe Staten, something that Joe Staten does.
Nice.
And Joe has been great with that, so I want to keep that up. I would like that to be a tradition with other pencilers, and maybe this could be a new tradition. But I would like to see other team ups too, and I encourage that with other people doing that. And I've always encouraged, like when we did APA 5, having that zine, that section where people collaborated with pencilers and inkers, because I like seeing what can happen.
Right.
And that's part about being an inker for me, is I like to see what can happen. So that makes it sort of a challenge, that brings out some of the joy of inking, to see the end result, because sometimes you do surprise yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
I had the coolest thing happen last weekend before last. As you guys know, we went through all that Skystorm artwork about a month and a half ago or something like that.
yeah,
And I've been scanning a lot of it and getting it organized and building a site. I came across 2 pieces of Darkness Chronicles artwork that I had started inking 15 years ago, and they were partially done. And I sit down Sunday and try to duplicate that inking style from 15 years ago to finish the piece, so you couldn't see where I had left off. And it was harder than you think.
I would imagine it'd be very hard.
You automatically want to do what you're doing now, but you got to hold back and try to do what you did 15 years ago. And it was, I think it was successful, but it was a cool experiment. The 2 pieces, I love them, so I definitely want them finished, and we're going to use them in the site and use them on the book. But it was definitely an experiment to ink like that, like you did 15 years ago. It was fun. And actually, it's got me wanting to ink comics again, Bill.
Good.
So
I like it when you get jazzed about stuff.
I know. I gotta get the site done first, but
Yeah.
I'm making a couple strips a week of Jackie, so it's keeping me going. But I'm definitely, once I get the site finished, we're gonna pick out a project. But cool. Inking. Buy all your supplies, Blue Line. There's a
That's
plug.
right.
Yeah.
There's a nice little plug.
Yeah.
And actually, Blue Line has everything that
Yep.
you really need. I mean, they got more pins than they know what to do with.
Yes, we do.
God knows I always buy more when I go up there. So
Brushes, quills, all kinds of inks, whiteouts. That's something we need to talk about. Whiteout. What's your
oh yeah, whiteout.
What's your favorite whiteout, John?
Oh, I'm honestly looking for a decent whiteout pin because I haven't found one. I'm still stuck with Pro White.
I can't find a pen I like at all. I now have several of them that I've tried. I always seem to bust open. That's where I still use a brush. So, but Bill,
Yeah.
where I jump in, I can't find one of these pens that really does what I want at all. Won't
Yeah.
cover.
The only thing even close I've ever found is a white gel pin, and it's still
So
a little
thin.
Yeah, it's so thin and too cakey.
And find
You know,
out
it tends to cake up.
when you scan it, you pick up shadowing from those edges.
Oh yeah.
Yep. That's what I'm finding out. So, what do you like, Bill?
There's some kind of white ink I was using,
Mhm.
but that's actually been an active thread on the aforementioned Inkwell Yahoo group. It's probably in the last 4 or 5 days. There have been several guys who have from was it White Ghost, and a couple of them use different kinds of paints.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on that's also the kind of effects that they're trying to get.
Right.
So,
Right. If they're actually using it as a tool.
Right.
I use just about always. I'll use Copic whiteout because it's a good solid whiteout. I can use a brush with it and get the coverage I want. Because a lot of times I'll white out and then come and ink back over to get my sharpness of a line or a curve or something, So I seem to always be re-inking over the whiteout to get the effect that I want. So I need a whiteout that I can do that to, and it truly whites out. And Copic is what I found out. I use F&W. My worst thing is F&W dries out, and I don't know, it just gives you fits. Copic, it's a jar, you have to open it, and everything. But it's still, to me, that's where I still use a brush because it gives me the effect that I want.
That's how Bill didn't honestly say what he uses, so I think
No.
he's trying to imply he doesn't make mistakes.
I think so.
okay. Well, obviously you have read my mind.
Now, if you're buying a Claysway strip, the mistakes are on there because I clean them up in Photoshop. If I mess up, I'll find it in Photoshop and I'll erase it in there. Usually I don't use much whiteout on a Claysway strip.
And actually, that's a nice segue because we did want to mention the progression of a strip. So, you mentioned off air how this storyline of Claysway has changed as you've written it.
Mm-hmm. We'll have to come out and touch on base sometimes when we're talking about writing comics. But yeah, this segment, we wanted to introduce a girl character that's sort of the Lucy to Charlie Brown it'd be Clay's Lucy character, one that's always seems to have it out for him. And she came along. We wrote the strips. They were more verbal than actually sitting down and plotting them out. So when I sit down and start writing the set of strips, I had trouble because we start off in an imaginary war scene. And then we moved into a snowball fight scene, and then we introduced the character. And it's sort of, I had to transcend, how did I connect the first set of panels, this imaginary war scene, with the snowball fight? Well, yeah, he's imagining, da-da-da. But I needed some type of verbalization there. So I sort of had Clay defending himself throughout the first two strips. And so by narrating those two strips, the final strip comes out and it'll be up. Well, I guess it'll be up Friday. So it'll be up by the time this podcast hits, so I'm not going to ruin anything. She gets hit by a snowball by accident. Well, she gets mad because not that she got hit by a snowball, but because her stuffed animal, she has her own stuffed animal, Princess, is wet, and Clay sort of blows it off. Oh, it's just a stuffed animal. Whoa, wrong thing to say, right? So, but we left it hanging there. So this morning, I met with Jackie and we got talking about it. I was like, we can't, it's not wrapping up the narrative part of the storyline. Clay defending himself. It's not wrapping that up. So we've actually added a double strip that will run on Monday. And Clay is in a ice cream / candy shop. And he has ice cream stuck on his shirt. And he's explaining to the guy behind the counter what led up to that and why he thinks she did it. And it's sort of like he's retelling this whole story how she got hit. And so we're going to run the narrative right up through here. And then she's outside the store waving when everybody looks and everybody goes, oh, well, she seems like a nice girl. You know, she wouldn't do something like that. And then everybody looks back at Clay. But that time she looks at Clay, points his fingers, takes a cup and crushes it like I'm going to crush you. Of course, nobody sees that but Clay. Right. So it sort of freaks him out. He's like going, you know. So it's a nice way to wrap up the narrative part of the story that really, when we started the strip, we didn't have. It sort of developed in it as it went along. So it's sort of a cool thing about these things, but it can also give you trouble, especially if you're working with another creator. I've been a lot of trouble if Jackie and I had already wrapped up for this week, and I came up with this, and we would have had to fit it in somehow. And Jackie's schedule, there's really Wednesdays is Clay's way work for Jackie, and that's about it. So, but we did. She did it. She was wrapping up the strip when I had to leave the studio, so it should be cool, and hopefully it'll help out telling. So we want to tell good stories. You know, we want to do one-off strips, but when we do these story strips, we want a good solid type stories. Work pretty hard at that. So this, by having to modify it and add this, it's really added to it. But we can get into that kind of stuff much later. We've been also working with Clay's Way, since we're talking about it. We're working on a Kickstarter program to do a comic book. So nice. Something we might want to discuss in a future podcast. Kickstarter. Yep, Bill's done a lot more work than I have and researched it. I'm going to have to jump in here and do some research, but we could sit down and once we put our proposal together, we could sit down and go through the steps that we created to do this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's extremely popular way to that a lot of people are approaching to get their books done and financed.
Finding out, talking to Jackie, she evidently follows a whole lot more than I did. That a lot of comics don't succeed in getting their comics, their money. I don't know if they're asking too much, not offering enough,
right,
or what. But the children's books did very well. So that's sort of going. Not that we're going to make a children's book from a comic, but we're definitely going to play that. We're going to really include a lot of ADHD information in the comic.
Right.
And so that's sort of the area we're going to really push this at to try to get the support for it.
Yeah, because like I said, I think that is not only is it a creative strip and enjoyable, but it can also educate and reach a segment of people that, I mean, there are a lot of people who either are acquainted with ADHD or have that effect, you know, or some of the other learning challenges that it touches, or it touches their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's one way to reach other people. So
right,
and get the strip out there in front of people who might enjoy it too. I mean,
Right.
it's a double-edged thing.
So anyway, that's something else we're working on is the Kickstarter and see how that goes. I'm going to dive into this weekend a little bit and do as much research as possible. Probably, I know Chuck has followed some success stories, so I'll probably talk to you guys Sunday about it, or Saturday.
Okay. Saturday. Yeah. And,
So,
it may not be a kid's book necessarily, but it is, being an all ages book,
Mhm.
it does fall within that genre. So, touting it as a children's book wouldn't be that difficult.
right. Well, I believe it's a pretty strong strip/site right now. I
Right.
think the logo is very professional. I think the strips are coming off very well done. And so I think we've got a head start upon a lot of people who don't have that as a background. So I think up front we have a pretty good head start. We just got to decide, there's a lot of factors, and that's maybe next week we'll talk about it. I'll research it some this weekend. Next week we'll talk about Kickstarter. So maybe Bill and I can discuss it some more. But I know to do it right, there's a lot involved, from planning it to putting everything together, to make sure all expenses are covered, to putting together a video proposal and everything. So it's a lot involved in doing it. I mean, you can halfway do it, but the chances are less that you're going to succeed. So, but yeah, we'll talk about it next week.
All right. So, I think we've actually covered this visual medium fairly well in audio form. So, I guess it's time to move on to the ever popular what's happening on the web.
Oh, wait a minute. We
What?
talked about ink
What?
and inking. We talked about whiteout.
Yes, we did.
What about erasers?
Oh, erasers. How could we forget
Yeah,
erasers?
so the reason I bring that up is my youngest was in here earlier. We're working on his science project.
Mhm.
One of the benefits of having a dad with a full design studio at home is that designing a display isn't hard. You just whip up Illustrator and go to work, right? Well, he grabs my kneaded eraser and says, "Dad, why you got silly putty on your art?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Turn around, he had my kneaded eraser pulling it. I'm like, "That's not silly putty, that's an eraser." He goes, "Well, how do you erase with this?" And so I had to show him how to use it as an eraser. But what are the erasers that you guys use? Anything in particular? Anything that you like? I'm trying to find mine now as we speak. So.
I use the white plastic one.
Mhm.
Just don't let it dry out. But
Yeah.
I mean, I have a kneaded eraser, and I have the pink pearl for some things. And I mean, you just don't want to.
Talking about the Staedtler's Mars plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I have here.
I have the one with the little gripper.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And yeah.
I like
So.
I like that. Sanford's got a nice non-abrasive eraser pencil too. That's pretty nice. And reason I like it is that you can sharpen it and get a point to it if you really need. And then the old kneaded eraser, depending on how much. What a lot of people don't understand is they get mad because the ink lifts. And it really depends on how much pencil is underneath that ink.
Mm-hmm.
And how much ink or dye that you get through that pencil to the paper. And a lot of people don't realize that. They blame it on the eraser, or the eraser lightened it. Well, yeah, it's going to sometimes. But you really got to understand is that the ink or the dyes, depending on if it's markers, has to get through that lead and attach to the paper, or it's going to lift right off. So when you're inking, you got to be thinking how that's going to be erased. You may even want to lighten it a little. If it's a heavy penciler, you may want to lighten it with a kneaded eraser just in small areas at a time before you ink it, so that you get better adhesion of the inks and the dyes.
Ooh, nice word.
Thank you. I've ran into that problem several times. And used many kneaded erasers just to lighten it enough, not where I'm affecting it. I'm just pulling some of that lead off of it so that the inks, will adhere much better. So then later when I clean it up, I've got a nice clean piece.
I kind of like that Black Magic one too.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be you can't
Gentle.
bear down on it a lot, but yeah, I kind of like that one too.
Okay, well, I just thought we sort of covered
Okay.
areas, and I thought, well, let's go ahead and add eraser since
Yeah. No, I can't believe I forgot something like
uh,
eraser.
it's an important part of the finished product. And then, of course, then I guess a lot of inkers nowadays, Bill, ink on the blue printouts, so there's no erasing.
Right.
True.
I printed out those Sammy pages for you in blue,
Hmm.
and you just ink over it. You scan it in color. You select the blue and knock it out, and you end up with your black piece. So
Or
there's
I wonder
always
how
that.
many. I wonder how many people are still light boxing and
Wow.
doing it on separate sheets. Because in that case, there's nothing to erase either.
Right.
If you're still light boxing, I don't think there are probably too many people who still use vellum.
I don't think so.
I mean, I actually still have some laying around here from
Yeah,
years ago,
I do
but
too.
I think most people light box onto a new page now
Yeah, I would
if
think
they
so.
still light box.
We moved some light boxes throughout the year, so there is somebody either. I think a lot of pencilers use light boxes. They do roughs. They tighten them up on something, whether it's tracing paper or copier paper, whatever, something thin. Slide it underneath the finished page, and then do the finished pencils on a page, and they're cleaner that way. So I see a lot of people using light box on the penciling stage, not so much through the inking stage anymore.
Well, actually, I had to light box the Christmas card I did for Jackie,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the amount of lines on it.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go back and redo it a couple of times to try to get
Mm-hmm.
what was actually there, because it was a little confusing with all the red lines on it. So
Yeah, I hate that
that was the
red
case where I
pencil.
had to use the red. Yeah, me too. That was the case I had to use the light box quite a bit.
Hopefully she's throwing that thing away.
I think when I go to their house next, I'm going to hide them all.
That's right. Tell her Bob said so. But
Bob made me do
that's
it.
right. Bob paid me to come here and hide these pencils.
That's right.
But all right, so yeah, I think inking. Hopefully we've inspired. Go grab a brush, pen, or quill. Hunts 102,
Yep.
and you can conquer it. It's a fun tool to play with. Um, and if not, you got more questions, we love them. Please send them.
Yeah, you can definitely do it. I mean, Bill can tell you. And actually, I don't remember the guy's name from back in the APA 5 days, Bill, but remember the guy who called me German expressionistic in my inks?
Sure.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I
I'm not
don't remember
like
who it
that
was.
anymore. Yeah, I don't remember who it was either, or I can't remember his name. But yeah, I'm not like that anymore.
Put little swastikas? What? I don't understand.
I think I used too much black. I was
Oh,
very
okay.
heavy blacks and very very dark.
So you were in doubt, black it out.
Oh yeah, and I was
Auto-
in doubt a lot apparently back in the day. But if I can improve, anybody can. So don't be afraid of it. Just keep at it.
And you do contribute as an inker, definitely.
Well, yeah. I mean, don't let Kevin Smith or anybody else fool you. Anchors are extremely important.
Yes,
That's the whole process.
you can tell the difference.
Yep.
I like a finished book that's inked.
Yeah, no matter what they say, oh, we could take these pencils straight to
You can.
straight to color. You can, but doesn't necessarily mean you should.
Right. Yep. All right, cool. So, John, what is Touch Base Around the World here? What's going on
All
over
right.
at Comic Related / Sketch Blog?
All right. A whole lot of tutorials, thankfully. I'm back on the heavy tutorial kick. The first one being Tim Sale. I'm a big fan of Tim Sale. I know there are some people who just absolutely can't stand his
Oh, I
style.
love it.
I love his style. I love the subtlety of his line. I really enjoy his work a lot. And here he is at a convention doing Batman in about 10 minutes, actually.
Wow.
He apparently has a stopwatch or an hourglass or something One time in the video I actually saw someone turn over an hourglass. I don't know if that was a joke or not, but and he does these things at shows in about 10 minutes. So it's interesting to watch. Then also a how-to from Jim Lee. I'm actually very envious of this little contraption he has here that allows him to project what he's drawing up there. It looks like an overhead, but it looks like an extremely advanced overhead device that you can see him at various parts of the video drawing up on the screen. So that's really interesting. It's in 3 parts, annoyingly enough, and it's not even one of those that they couldn't necessarily have put them together. So it's strange, but it's worth watching. Then Phil Jimenez, and I probably said that wrong. I'm also a big fan of his work. I really like what he does in Adventure Comics these days. So there's a really good thing of him drawing a page from Adventure. A little shorter than I would have liked. I wish they had gone a little more in depth, but still a really good video. Then, of course, with the passing of the Human Torch, I had to give a little thing of that, and I found one of Gene Ha doing a Torch convention sketch.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What? The Human Torch passed?
Yes.
No,
I'm
he
sorry.
did not. Come on. Did you read that?
Actually, I did read it, and you didn't see the body.
You
just
saw
them pile
him
up on
get
him.
piled up.
Yeah.
He'll come back, brainwashed,
There-
and be leading those bugs that take over our
Probably.
world or something. He's not dead.
Or there's probably a Nova Blast
That
going to pop up there somewhere.
That was where the PR department jumped on something and said, "Oh, this is what we can
Let's get
do."
him.
And you know, I liked Hickman's writing, but I'm almost at a point he's sold out on this one.
Yeah. And we discussed this on the most recent related recap. And my theory is that they're going to take Reed, Sue, and the 2 kids, and they're going to be the Fantastic Four for a while. But then someone else on the podcast brought up that this is issue 587, 88, something like that. So 600 is about a year away.
Right.
So I think Torch will be gone for a year.
Mm-hmm. Cap.
And then 600, boom, he's right back up.
Oh, he'll be back before they start another movie or something. So.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So.
But aren't they
they're
changing the title to FF or something like that?
Yeah, or Fantastic 3, or
Just
whatever.
have a 3, but I think they've actually solicited FF as the official title.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
And Ben's in the Avengers anyway, so there's really no reason why Reed, Sue, and the kids couldn't be the 4 right now.
Right.
Because both the kids have powers.
Right.
Or at least did last time I checked. So
I don't think the little girl does. I think she's
I don't
really
know.
smart like her dad.
Yeah, she's super smart and creepy. So, maybe that's her power. But
What? There's a little girl?
Oh, Bill. Okay.
Bill, read a comic, will you?
Valerie's back.
Valerie's back?
Bill, go sit in the Borders. Read some graphic novels.
That's right.
I don't have that kind of time.
I know.
I have to wait for our podcast to catch up on comics. Oh my gosh.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Read the forums. I'm sure somebody talked about it.
I'm sure. So I'm sorry. I couldn't miss on the app.
No, that's fine.
Disappointed in it. I'm like, come on. If he'd
love it.
supernova and disappeared, I've been more impressed. But
Yeah, no kidding.
to get buried by a bunch of ants, nah.
I think he'll cook them all in the next panel or whatever, but
Yeah.
they just got way too quick. But speaking of conventions, as a lot of my previous little things were, I came across this independent publisher who does Guns of Shadow Valley, giving some fairly good convention tips from a creator's perspective. So that's worth checking out, definitely, especially since, and this is another thing we discussed last night, there's a crap load of conventions coming up, and I am on the hook for, I think, about 24
Oh.
coming up. So it's if you've never been to a convention, get out from under that rock. First thing. Secondly, you need to know what to prepare for. So check that out. Conventions are definitely a necessary part of the beast. Then beyond that, we have cross hatching. Speaking of an inking style, this is cross hatching, blah blah blah, in the manga style.
Cool.
However, although I do always like when comic artists use those more classic kinds of inking or just drawing techniques. I mean, cross hatching, is right up there with those the most classic of drawing techniques. So that's good. Then I found it's not really a tutorial. I just thought it was amusing that J. Scott Campbell is drawing Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, and I've long been a big Bruce Campbell fan. Nobody can be that insane and self-deprecating and not be loved. So I definitely like him, and I've always liked J. Scott Campbell's art anyway. So that's a good thing there. And then I think my last one here, there's a quick lesson on doing layers. And actually, now that I say those words, I did that last time. So that is it for Sketch at Comic Related for this time.
So, Bill, what's going on over at the boards?
We're getting our final entries as we speak of for the Despicable Me win that DVD contest. It's draw your favorite super villain doing something heroic. So there are going to be several entries to check out. Probably by the time, we'll be getting judges' votes by the time this podcast airs. But the idea is that they do it. They enter, and we have judges from all levels of the industry. Pros and people who are in comics or who do comic stuff judge these things or give their comments. The last couple have been really great as far as judges taking their time out to add comments or to little criticisms, things to make it better. So that's coming up, and you can check that out on the comic-related community under Sketch Magazine contests.
What's been going on over on the Mentor?
A lot of mentoring,
Good.
A lot of, make things happen. Today's another day. Keep moving forward. And it's time to, that's what it's called. It's time, and it's time to make things happen. It's time to, if you haven't made a plan, make a plan. If you have a plan, get started on your plan. If you knock 3 things off your list, work on the next one. Make it 4. I'm back to posting regularly now, so I've had a guy named Chris Galvin last week said, that's one of the things that motivates him when he gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to work is reading Comics Mentor.
Cool.
And for me, that's motivation right there, knowing that, I'm helping somebody else out, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm up. So a lot of encouragement. Go read them.
Awesome.
What's going on over in your world?
My world consists of Blue Line. We're still putting together the order for the big sketchbooks, and worked on the new newsletter went out last week. So if you want to catch up on what the coolest new art supplies or what's going on or special offers, you got to sign up for the newsletter. And been working on the Skystorm website. It's a massive website, lots of work. It's coming together. It's coming together slower than I want. It's probably going to be more like the end of February before it launches. But it's gonna. I had no clue how much stuff we had sitting here. Let's just put it that way. The more I dive in, the more stuff I pull out, and I had no clue how much was not digitized, was not scanned. We got some cool stuff. It's going to be fun sharing this with everybody. So, been working a lot on that. Working on the Clay's Way strip twice a week. Working with you on getting the Kickstarter going. So, got a lot of pans going on fire right now. Working on a science project with my youngest. Designing airplanes, paper airplanes. That's been fun. But yeah, a lot of stuff happening. A lot of stuff. Next week we'll talk about Kickstarters. And
Okay.
John, sounds like we need to talk about conventions. Maybe a week after that.
I think
Which
so. I
ones
think
people
so. There's
need to look
definitely a
at.
lot.
I only have one physically scheduled, and that is Chicago. But I know how the year usually goes. I won't go back to New York if I can't set up. So, and I like to go back to New York. So I'm going to probably look at trying to get a table there. San Diego's probably out this year. I was going to try planning a family trip out, but we ended up planning for Florida. So probably try that again next year. And we should have more studio stuff done by next year to really to do a San Diego setup. But there will be a lot of small shows. I heard Space is sold out, which is great.
Yep.
That's
Space
great.
is definitely sold out.
I hope more people walk in the door at Space. I like to see it really grow with more attendance. So that would be good. But that's really about it. I want to let everybody know about the podcast apps. I keep being told that we need to promote these. So we have a iPhone app that's available there at the site at sketchmagazine.net. And I think it's like $1.99. Download it, and it will automatically go and download, update, and give you the latest podcast. And we have an Android app, which I have not been able to use because I don't have an Android phone. But if I understand right, it works the same way. You put the app on your phone, and it goes out and grabs the podcast and keeps you at the most up-to-date information there. So please check them out. It's be a cool way to support us here. John, how can they find you?
They can always find me at john@sketchmagazine.net or john@comicrelated.com.
Bill?
comicsmentor@gmail.com, or on the site is comicsmentor.com, or on the Comic Related forum at comicrelated.com/forum or forums. I don't know. It's there. There's a button for it. There's an app for that.
There's an app for that.
There's an app for it. You can find me at bobh@bluelinepro.com, or you can get a hold of all three of us at podcast@sketchmagazine.net. Please send us your questions. If you don't feel like we did a good enough job covering it, we'll be more than try to do a better job, or go find answers for you if you have any questions. So I appreciate it. Take care, guys.
See ya.
Have a good week.